We're going live.
Yep, we're live now. So good morning, committee. It's Wednesday morning, March 27th, almost a week from tomorrow. And we have people coming in at 9:30. And I guess just a quick review. We have our 301 bill that should be up on the floor this morning that Irene's gonna be reporting. So we're all set on that one, Irene.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be in the afternoon, actually, right?
Well, yeah, it'll
1 o'clock.
be this afternoon. And Brian,
Mr. Chair, do we need to look at the finance amendment or we don't need to look at the finance amendment? Our committee, I
Well-
don't remember how that,
Brian,
I'm looking at the calendar. Section 20 is the effective date and our vote 500. And right underneath it, reported favorably by Senator Bray for the Committee on Finance. That committee recommends bill out of pass. When
Yeah, that's
amended,
right. We don't-
as recommended by the Committee on Agriculture. So I don't think they added any amendment. Because normally it would be here. Unless he's gonna do it on the floor.
we've talked about it for a while, I feel.
I thought they
Right.
reported to us yesterday in the tropes that they added that amendment on.
Well, it's not in the calendar. That is the report though, and it just says,
It just says finance report.
and underneath it, it said committee recommends bill out of pass when amended as recommended by the Committee on Ag.
This was
That's
gets
weird.
into
But,
It's
well, anyways, if it does show up, that'll be presented by them. And it's supposed to be to give Rygate Paper Mill an extension on
I
their
mean, this
Act 250 permit in time. And the finance committee
this year.
was doing that, plus they were putting another little section on that amendment that subject to their Rygate's ability to pay their wood producers in a timely fashion, receiving wood raw wood from the cutters. And which sounded like it was fair to me. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Shit, that's up.
so that's that issue. I met with chair of the House Committee, in their big bill. He didn't know all the mechanics of how it got there, but it's something to do with capital funds, capital construction funds. But there's $1 million in the budget bill to help our loggers that suffered some major losses due to the weather and things. So that's that, and they've got a House Bill 687 that I think he said it came out of their Natural Resources Committee in Energy over on the House side that exempts farm standards from 250.
Oh.
And we talked about,
Oh, that's why it's going to Bray. I thought they were exempting them from something else. I see.
yeah, what else could we?
I didn't know. I thought it was some kind of some financial exemption or something. I remember we did talk about that though.
About exempting
We did.
auxiliary
Yeah.
buildings or something.
Yeah.
And so anyways,
Okay.
so anyways, we're getting work scheduled for next week
Okay.
already. tomorrow, it's school nutrition day.
Mhm.
So we got some people coming in early on. To talk with us about that. And then we've got people coming on Friday to talk of, remember last year we did that water withdrawal?
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
That-
the straw, yeah.
Yeah, so we got A&R coming in on Friday to talk about that. And so that's where we are on that stuff.
Senator, also tomorrow, we're going to have them come in on that miscellaneous ag bill that's passed out of the house. That's just been added
Oh, okay.
for tomorrow.
From the agency or?
No, just
from the
introducing the bill,
reporter.
the sponsor and the reporter.
Rodney Grant, the reporter, so
Oh, it is.
we ought to drill him a little bit.
Just-
Yeah, Rodney, he's been around long enough. No, he's a good one. But good to pick on those health guys. Shape them up. I told Dave that, I don't know if I mentioned it, we were having some problems with right to repair bills, so, trying to get a consensus on that thing was a little difficult, so. And, I told him all the stuff that we've done to, went to the dealership, had, people in and, so I told him where we were and, wasn't any reason to be carrying any flags around that we had a big day because it's going pretty rough. But anyways, that's where we are on that stuff. Now Caroline, she's coming in at.
They're actually, both of them are going to be by Zoom.
All on Zoom this morning. So, Brian, Richie's gotta leave at 9:45. And I think Brian's.
Well,
gonna
if you'd
come-
rather have me stick around, I can do mine, I can postpone mine until 10:30. We have the break.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that you have, so it's, yeah.
yeah.
I'll just be
Well,
out for about.
I mean, the three of us can do it.
I know, I can actually-
But, we'd like to have your input. You know the rule in here, right?
He knows more about chicken breasts.
If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And if the three of us are here and we vote something out, you two are, better be voting yes with us.
Is he bringing a chicken dinner for that or? Cause are you talking chicken parts?
Not this morning. No, I
Inspection.
don't think we're
I
on.
think we're doing, I think we're chicken
Yeah. They're
inspection.
coming in on that.
Oh, rural Vermont,
Yeah,
yeah. But that,
So you are talking chicken parts.
yeah, but I haven't had, only Paul and the lady
ready for miles.
Isle of Mont, the only two witnesses that we had say anything negative about the chicken part.
Yeah,
I mean,
So how many chickens you got?
now,
Yeah.
or,
No,
why do you have to ask that question?
because he could bring us chicken dinner,
yeah, they're,
fresh chicken.
Bobby's not allowed to party.
yeah, no, they're all.
He's the only farmer we got left in the room.
I know.
You don't embarrass him with his number.
I'm not embarrassed. That's enough, four's enough to feed us.
No, that should make quite a difference for those, people.
Yeah, I think the idea was to have Caroline and, this other gentleman come in and find a sweet spot for it. We talked a lot about whether it's 1,000, 5,000, 20,000.
Yeah. If there should be any numbers,
And 20's a lot.
Oh, we had,
No, yeah,
just information.
It's
We
a
had,
lot.
Buildings and Grounds in yesterday, do their share of the budget.
oh, yeah.
And, Andy Persley. I didn't even think about it because we had it kind of squared away about 133 State Street. He brought that up, wanted to make sure the farmers markets were gonna be able to use 133 State Street with the commission.
All right.
Oh, yes, we're gonna tuck everything up and,
Good.
Yeah, that was a good meeting with him.
so that, I mean, that kind of guarantees, if the commissioner said that, and, you know, I said that we'd had the deputy commissioner and was very good about offering to help and how pleased we were with, you know, their response. And, well, she said it sort of got out of hand there for a day or two and everything, it did, you know, they got all shook up. And, said it could have been handled a little bit better. So, is there anything else?
Yeah, can somebody remind me, do I read all the titles of all the witnesses?
No.
I've done this forever, I'm just reading names, right?
No, the other way around.
I
Just
don't
say,
read names, I just read the titles. Thank you.
and I'd just say we've heard from a large group of people.
Yeah.
And,
If
you know,
want
we
to-
do have a witness list if any of
Okay.
you would like to.
Yeah, cause this
It's
bill
long.
explanation is already 4 pages, I don't really wanna.
Go through and read every.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
No,
okay.
that's just,
Alright, I'll let hand then,
Everybody might
Thank you.
ask, but
for the tip.
that'll save you 5 minutes or 10.
Well, saves us
Save
all
us all,
5 minutes, that's
so we
life's
can get
short.
another bill done.
yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
thank you,
You only read the list if it gains you any support.
okay. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of controversy about changing
Well-
whether the egg people need a license or not, in storage.
I don't think we have anything controversial in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost got up on your bill yesterday.
No, great. Here we
So
Better than I did.
you said you're giving the ad agency more work to do with in regards to literacy, and I was gonna ask you who caused the literacy problem in the first place and why you'd be patting them on the back and giving them
Another position.
more authority to, and another position to keep going in the same direction.
Well, we did, we, I think, started to steer that ship with them with the ARPA funds a few years ago and made some changes, because I think we all agree things weren't going in the right direction. But they have a good person over there, I have to say, who's been overseeing the literacy stuff. And I think we're making progress. But one of the things we heard, I don't know if I said this on the floor a couple of years ago, is we had teachers coming into the committee, my first year as chair, saying, we don't know how to teach reading and writing. They left teacher education programs and didn't know how to do it. So a lot of this has been retraining, getting people up
At
to
college level.
at the college. Well, right, these are young people graduating from college without those skills. So one of the big pieces of the bill we passed a few years ago was making certain the colleges and universities in the state that are training our teachers know how to do it. Crazy,
No, that is.
right? I mean,
And how come you didn't add in the Dolly Parton?
well, like I said, we're not done yet.
He wants Dolly to come up and
We'll get,
Well, I think I may go down to Nashville. This summer.
And she would welcome you with open arms.
Well, let's say 9 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
we'll keep at
we'll
it.
keep working on it, cause I don't like going home without getting a job completed.
I agree with you.
And there's more than one way to get it completed, but the nice way would be to,
Well, if you can find another way to get it completed, we should talk,
it would be better.
I think. But we should just talk about it, yeah.
Well, I've given that some thought, just in case.
Sure.
Sure.
But when I ran,
I'm sure.
when I ran into the chair of appropriations. And Brett said, hey, is there some money? She didn't give me a, oh, sure, come on, we've got plenty, we've got money. I know, she doesn't buy it though. She said, he doesn't have any money left.
I'll have to remind her,
Okay,
because, we saved $100,000.
right.
On a different issue. And I told her that might be needed for, but anyways,
Bill Kavanaugh's here.
pardon?
Bill Kavanaugh is
Oh,
here.
Bill's on?
Yeah, and I'm thinking that Caroline, land's coming. I'm just wondering if that's why she's not, oh, no, here she is. Okay, we're all here.
Okay, so why don't we, bring them on?
Okay.
So we'll go to our screen. Good morning, Bill. Good morning, Caroline.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. I don't know if we kept you waiting, but if we did, we apologize. And no, okay. Caroline, did you get a message from me this morning on your phone?
I had a missed call earlier, but I didn't get a text message. If you,
No, I didn't text. I called her. Missed call. So,
we missed.
but
We
anyway,
missed
yes. So, Bill, did you want to start off or Caroline?
I think,
Bill?
yeah, I think either way works. You know, I'm Caroline and I had just sort of had a little bit of a conversation about me being able to speak to you all about HACCP planning and food safety around chicken production. And I'm happy to give you a little bit of background, but I'm also happy to just kind of jump right in if you've got questions. I can kind of go in whatever direction makes the most sense for y'all.
Well, I think we may as well start right off with you, Bill. We're real interested in moving this bill along. We just want to make sure that, you know, we don't have contaminated chicken and out in the market. And so far, everything has gone real well from the people we've had in. So I think we'd like to hear from your thoughts in regards to it and go from there.
Yeah, happy to. And, you know, I've been spending a little bit of time kind of brushing up on sort of, you know, the history of the bill and where things are at. So if I get any details wrong, forgive me and feel free to jump in. But yeah, so just by way of really quick sort of personal background. So I'm a farm business advisor in NOFA, Vermont. Prior to coming to NOFA, I had worked in the meat industry for about 10 years in sort of a production role and also in a management role. And in that time, I got educated on HACCP and food safety because that's, you know, pretty critical to the industry. And I've since coming to Vermont, I've been doing HACCP planning, both sort of through my job and also kind of like ad hoc for folks who might need some HACCP plan support. So I have, you know, a little bit of that background. I'm not at all, you know, there's whole academic disciplines devoted to this sort of food science. That's not my background. My background is much more sort of production based. But I do work with a lot of poultry farmers, you know, livestock farmers of all sorts. But, you know, in this case, I work with a lot of poultry farmers. So, you know, just kind of by way of that as a background, I have worked with a few of the, you know, commercial poultry processors in the state to do some food safety updates and some HACCP plan updates, and just have, you know, really worked with them a lot to sort of help make sure that, you know, the product that they're making is safe and bless you. You know, in compliance with what laws are sort of currently existing. So, you know, I certainly think, you know, we've got a good bit of history behind us now with our on-farm slaughter for chickens. I think it's sort of proved to be safe at this point in terms of the whole animals. I don't think that's not, has, to my mind, hasn't really been up for debate. And I think being able to move to a parted chicken in some way, shape, or form makes a lot of sense. You know, it's not a massive leap to go from, you know, a whole slaughtered chicken down to, you know, taking that into parts. So, was there at one point some conversation about adding some sort of like HACCP plan or sort of food safety element beyond what we have currently? Is that?
Well, we talked about that, talked about, you know, the numbers as they get higher. That means that the process has to work more often, and sometimes easier or faster. If there was a cutoff number that seemed to be convenient for our farmers, but yet not so large that, you know, 20,000, if you start running 20,000 birds through a process, your odds of having contamination, I would think, are greater than if you're doing 10,000 or 5,000. Do you have any experience on those numbers and volumes? And
Yeah, I would agree with that sort of in principle. I don't have I couldn't say, you know, for instance, you know, a particular number versus another number is, you know, a different level of risk. I think it does scale a little bit. I do think one of the things that you run into, you know, if you think about a farmer who's doing 5,000 birds versus a farmer who's doing 20,000, the scale of the processing is very different, right? You know, 5,000 birds over the course of a growing season might be something that like yourself and a farm partner could handle sort of in-house, so to speak. I think anything as you scale up, you've got to have hired help. You start to sort of, as a manager, you kind of zoom out of the situation a little bit. And I do think that there is a little bit more inherent risk in that. And I think that's an appropriate way to look at it, you know, just because you're not hands-on with every step, and sometimes things can sort of slip through the cracks a little bit.
And the other issue was, I don't know, I don't think we heard testimony on is if you go each week to, you know, your farmer markets on different days, do you slaughter a lot on one day and then quick freeze them or freeze them and use them during that week? Do you do it for a 2 week supply for sales? I don't know if either you or Caroline know or can comment on how many days does a farmer build a supply for, say, chicken parts, because it's all brand new.
Yeah.
You know, whole chickens is one thing, but then chicken parts is totally a lot more time consuming.
I think, you know, and Carolyn could probably speak to this as well with some of the farms that rural Vermont has been talking with. My experience in this world and with the farms that I work with is the slaughter process and the production process is sort of decoupled from the sales process, meaning, you know, you've got a set schedule every week. I've got new chicks coming in on a staggered basis and I'm slaughtering them on, you know, however many weeks out. So I might slaughter, call it 100 chickens a week, do what I will with them, and then they usually go right into the freezer. Excuse me. Most farmers don't have a fresh chicken pipeline. You know, if they slaughter one day and, you know, the farmers markets, you know, in a day or two later, they might keep some fresh, but most farmers, I think, would slaughter to freeze and then sell frozen has been my experience.
well, that would make certainly more sense. The first part of the week is, they could do that because farmer markets are usually Friday, Saturday, I would assume. There might be some odd ones that are open Thursday, I don't know, but so that kind of makes sense. But I don't know if we wanna tie anybody's hands to, like, you can slaughter 100 at a time or 200, I was just asking the question because we could get asked on the Senate floor, well, how's this all gonna work? I doubt if the question will come, but it could.
Yeah. And, my sense is really for most farmers, it's, maintaining a fresh meat supply chain on this scale that we're talking about is really, really tricky. And I think most farmers rightly just don't try. They, they keep their meat frozen. It's much more stable that way. They have a lot more flexibility with sales that way. I think, some of the farmers that I'm familiar with who do sell fresh tend to be much larger scale and usually are under inspection at the moment anyway.
So at the farmer markets, that chicken usually would be frozen?
Yeah. And Carolyn, do you feel differently? I mean, that's been my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the record, Caroline Gordon with Wool Vermont. That's my experience too with the producers we work with, that it's all frozen birds. But also if there, the agency has promised that adding a process of parting out the birds for them would mean they have to update their guidance of how it's done well, that process. So I expect that new guidance would include, would cover that question, how to handle prospectively a fresh product sale. And what the guidance would be for how what's the temperature control points, and so producers would know, like, how would they be able to do that well. That would be needed in such a guidance document where such details can be handled well. Just like we need that guidance on the process itself too.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to backtrack a little bit. From what we hear, there's no one in Vermont doing 20,000. So it's sort of a category that's not being used. But there are people that are doing substantially fewer. Notice I didn't say less, I read. So the testimony I heard from, I think it was Taylor in Chester, was one that I kind of wanted to zero in on. She's doing 750, she and her husband. And they truck it to Rhode Island, and they want to do double that, which would be 1,500. And I think Caroline expressed this in her email that she sent to us. What I'm interested in doing is finding a sweet spot where maybe there's some more, I don't know if I want to say oversight, some other precautions that might be like a HACCP plan in place for that level without making it so burdensome and so hard to do that we lose people on it. And I don't know what that level is. I don't know what you just said, Caroline. I didn't hear the agency say they're going to have any new guidelines. That's the first time I've heard that. Maybe I wasn't paying that much attention, but I didn't hear the agency say that. So that's where I'm at. I like the bill. I want to pass the bill. I want to move it forward. But I don't want to make it so burdensome for a small farmer that we've, in essence, ruined it for them,
I'm happy to go on that. I really appreciated your comment, Senator Collmore, at one of the previous hearings where you suggested maybe something like having a agency consultation at the 5,000 bird level, where the agency comes to the farm, checks out the setting, and maybe speaks about the guidance and how the setting could, even the process be improved. And also, that's something the agency already offers to do. The agency currently operates in their meat inspection division on an enforcement basis. So they're not engaged in outreach and education aside from providing their guidance document, but they do, when people reach out on a one-by-one basis, offer a lot of support to the people that reach out, and that, so I think such a side consultation does make sense, because it would mean that we're not hitting over the head people that might already operate on the 5,000 bird exemption with a HACCP plan, with a full-blown HACCP plan, but offer like a facing with the agency, so that the agency also knows better the landscape, the lay of the land, who's even out there, and can offer, also be that resource to, you know, foster connections to people like Bill, to help their business development progress into the next stage, in a way that's meeting the needs of that farm. And I would think that a new guidance, and that might be something that would also really not hurt if it were in the bill, to charge the agency to update their guidance document so that this on-farm, the parting out of the bird is covered in that document. And what I also think, all the recommendations from Bruce and the Hubers, I think were all very constructive, and I really appreciated them being on the baseline in support of the bill, but trying to advance these points, I think, makes sense. What Bruce Hennessy has been recommending in terms of to a HACCP plan, that should go hand in hand with resources, outreach and education, and technical assistance. I think that's also a question I would have for Bill. How many technical service providers like Bill are around, and if we were to prescribe a HACCP plan for the 5,000 bird exemption, if we would get a little bit in a linchpin with not having enough staffers to support that work. So I think that would be something I would be open to working with our agency, and anyone who's interested in coming also back in the next biennium, because I think that would be a budget item to basically make sure that our meat inspection division maybe does get an outreach and education capacity. And I think that's something we would like at Rural Vermont, also for on-farm slaughter in general, because frankly, we're doing a lot of that outreach and education around how on-farm slaughter is done. I really don't feel like it's our small nonprofit's job to provide that. And we would like our agency, really like our agency, to take more agency over these practices, but that we have to see that has to be coming with resources. And these resources are not in this bill. And if we were to add them, we all know that would not pass this year. So that's why I'm thinking what you recommended earlier, maybe have a consultation visit. That's something feasible that wouldn't hurt, that we could add.
And Caroline, if I can just follow up a little bit. So what would you suggest we do with those in the category of one bird to 4,999? In other words, should we just let that go the way it is in the bill and give them that exemption to part the bird and not worry about anything else? And then it is and I don't know why we picked 5,000. I mean, we could have picked 2,500 or 4,000 for. It's probably an arbitrary number, but it is the number, so.
Or 75.
Or 75, yeah. So, go ahead.
Well, to be clear, those would be the people who would get the consultation with the agency, because the 5,000 exemption, that's the upper limit. So any 1,001 up to 5,000, they would get the agency consultation and some extra on some support and meeting the guidance and, you know, all that networking experience with the agency. And then the 20,000 bird exemption, those are really the people 5,001 birds up to 20,000 birds. And there, I mean, I think that would be the question if we want to add the HACCP plan requirement there. But maybe my suggestion is that probably would be worthwhile resourcing and staffing such an endeavor too, and making sure that's going to be done well, and really that there's an onboarding for that, and not just a requirement that really people will have trouble with getting into that well.
So maybe the solution, and I'm just suggesting this, is to leave the 20,000 exemption for whole birds only. So we don't change anything at that level and concentrate more. And I don't know how many there are that do 5,000 a year, whether you have any data on that.
They do more.
or, yeah, if they do more, I know what I wanna do, but I don't know about what number it should be, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would make sense to work with the tiers that exist, and I think a cutoff like that to like advanced departed birds on those first two tiers, so that maybe the agency and Rural Vermont and if NOFA and Bill would support this work, and maybe Bruce Hennessy and the Hubers would be interested to be a control point too with the recommendations we might want to keep shaping for the 20,000 bird exemption. I think that would make sense.
So go to the 499.9, and then above that,
They gotta visit.
yeah. Yeah, because it might be, we've had testimony that from the producers that certain chicken parts will sell much easier and faster than whole chickens. But being brand new at this, we don't know what those parts may end up being. So it might be good to run along up to 1,000 from or 999, 1,000 to 4,999 there, get the help from the agency. And then above that, just leave it the way it is for whole chicken.
We can always come back if we find out that, there's, an issue somewhere, or that there's more people doing something more than what we think. We can always change it. I think we need to do it at maybe small steps and make sure, in my view, that we take care of the smallest farmers first. And give them a helping hand, but not make it burdensome. I keep using that word, but I know how it is. I really understand how, was it, maybe Ronald Reagan said, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help. Well, maybe.
I think that really sounds good. I mean, I spoke to some of the producers who testified, and they all said, we're open to considering what if there's other things we have to meet along the way, and people know that if they scale up, that the goal will be to come under inspection. So I really think that 20,000 bird tier is the tier where we just need to do more work on to figure out how should that look like in the in-between exemption and inspection. I think the HACCP plan conversation and the resources that we need to go with that will be something we would love to work on and to come back with to you all.
Yeah.
We'll probably have to have the agency in to talk about how easy it would be for them to implement this. And I don't know, maybe Steve Collier.
Yeah, but we don't need to do any implementing at the present with the present bill. If we top it out at 4,999, they can already get. Remember the lady that was with Steve Collier said they go and help the people with their slaughter, techniques and. So, so just to confirm it one more time, you don't know of any farmer that goes above the 5,000 right now with chicken?
No, I don't know that right now, but I would think that passing this bill, we heard from across the board, people would be interested in scaling up because of that, what they do as poultry production, and also how their engagement in poultry production contributes to their overall livelihood and career. So I would think we would get more people towards meeting the 5,000 bird limit with this, and the agency would also get a better understanding a little bit of how many producers and where they are, and that could inform for sure another biennium's work on that tier of the 20,000 bird exemption. And we know, of course, historically there have been farms that started under exemption and then got all the way up. Maplewood Farm is that example that I hint at. They started small and they're processing about that many birds, but they gotten under inspection so far. So that's the poster child example how that career has worked out to scale up from an exempt facility to then operate in the same footprint under inspection.
The other thing that we really, somebody should be working on is to the people in, you say Chester,
Yes.
they have to travel way down to Rhode Island to get their birds processed, and you know that if we had a processor here in Vermont, we could keep that work done here, keep the money that cost here, do a lot less traveling. I don't know who would get that started, but it's too bad we don't have a processor that could do this kind of work for our own farmers. But that's
Yeah.
something that we need to look into, maybe, through working lands or something, somebody could get a grant to, we tried the movable, slaughter facility, but that failed and, but there may be some other way that we could help somebody get set up so they could do the slaughter right here in Vermont rather than Rhode Island.
And I will just add to that, Senator, if I may, that of course we do think of that too, and we do believe that passing this bill, is kind of the chicken and the egg discussion of the slaughterhouse too, because without having producers that are able to scale up dynamically and come into a larger scale of production, without them, there wouldn't be business for a slaughterhouse. So we need this so that someone else can have the idea to make a slaughterhouse and it will make financially value for them because there's the producers who need that. So we will, I think with this bill passing it, we will also be on a better path to get more slaughter facilities back online.
That's very true. Yeah, because now they have no job, because they can't sell it. But if we can get to selling it and it goes over big, then there would be a need for a private slaughterer to,
Can you remind me, are there 2 facilities now in the state that process? I think I remember that number.
You know,
7?
Bill might know exact because it's a little confusing because not all the facilities that exist take other people's birds to process.
Yeah. I would just say the 2 that I know of that take in outside birds to process would be Maple Wind and then Jason Hubner's place. What a lot of the other farms do, so I'm thinking about like Adams Turkey Farm or like Stonewood, my understanding is they have a facility that they use just for their own animals. One of the things, like I kind of work in this realm a lot, through my business planning work, my work with farm viability. I've worked with a lot of processors, usually more on the red meat side, but as everybody probably knows, one of the biggest burdens folks face is wastewater, and wastewater handling can be a massive undertaking to getting something like this off the ground. And because of the way the exemptions are all written, if you process, I think it's 51% of your own animals, you're exempt from wastewater treatment. You can usually do like a catchment system and spread it, which is significantly cheaper. So most folks gear their processing facilities at least to a large chunk of their own animals to be able to get under that exemption. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we've kind of come to the conclusion. But be 4,999.
Well, it says 5,000, but yeah,
5.
yeah. 5
Use 5.
Well, the bill says 5, I don't, we can change it to 4,000.
No, we'll use the same language, so we don't have to. 5's fine.
It says not more than 5.
Yeah, or not more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty good as written.
anything else, that suggestions from you folks?
Can I just ask, is there currently, I know you're sort of figuring out the numbers, is there currently in your thinking some sort of like a food safety plan or like record keeping requirement in there?
Not that I know of, and the agency we've had them in, they haven't, requested anything.
Okay.
Nothing in the bill. So no, I don't think there's anything on that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking. I'm not making any sort of suggestion. I was just wondering about, what that would look like. But yeah, I mean, I think that,
No,
as it
it's
stands, it
pretty-
sounds good.
Pretty straightforward, easy to understand, and yeah, I think everyone's sort of on board, supporting it.
Yep.
Of all the witnesses we've had, I think only two, spoke a little bit against the process, but both of those, also started out not being inspected and grew enough so that they need to be inspected, and I think any of our present people that that sell chicken would like to do the same thing with chicken, so hopefully we'll get one or two more that grow enough to have a processing facility. I now have one chicken producer in my area of the state. They said that with very, very little modifications, they could be an inspected processor at their farm because they needed a nice place for themselves to work, so they built it according to specs, and they said with very little alterations, they could be inspected. So let's hope that we do get a couple of more that will grow fast enough, so they can do
Yeah.
it.
In terms of the final recommendation, I think first of all, I appreciate all of your good work on this, and I think this topic about needing inspected processing capacity, I think there is something to take away there too for you all, and that is really this funding question. I think in my opening testimony, I referenced this meat development grant that the agency had put forward, and I remember that the governor had requested 10 million total for meat produce maple last year, and I think they got in the end like 5 million, and meat got like 1.6 million of that. But then they got almost 26 million in application, and that really shows the discrepancy of what's the need and what's available to farming. And as we're progressing through the legislature, all these climate resiliency bills and things like the Make Big Oil Pay bill that VPERC spearheaded and that you guys just passed through the Senate, I believe. I think making sure that resources coming as revenue to the state, I think moving forward, agriculture needs to play a big role towards climate resiliency in our food security, and we will need severely increased funding for agriculture and maybe even a separate budget just for that. So that we can really fund what we need to invest in agriculture with state support.
So again, just trying to recap here, because I'm looking at the bill now, we will have to change some of the stuff in here, right? If fewer than 1,000, I think we can leave it exactly the way it came out of the House. But I'm suggesting maybe that the 5,000 bird exemption include some reference to, and I don't know what we want to call it, help from the agency or a meeting with them or something.
Caroline talked about
Yeah,
what did you call that?
I call it a consultation visit.
okay. So that, we probably want to put that in at some point under the 5,000 bird exemption. Yeah. And we're gonna have to delete the reference to the 20, or leave it, but leave it as whole birds and not parts, if I'm remembering correctly. And that might be it. I'm just trying to get to the bottom here and make sure that I'm not missing something.
And I'm sure Julie Beware would be happy to confirm with you all that the agency is planning to update guidance should this bill pass.
Yeah. Well, I think we do need to talk to the agency at least one more time on it and get their buy-in. And then Michael, of course, have to change some of the language. I feel better. I'm hoping that sort of the small farmers that might be tuned in. Because they really, they're up against it. And to me, that it's absolutely crazy that you take a 4-hour trip to Rhode Island or to Maine to process something that was grown here. It
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense to me at all.
well, plus, they're gonna have a product that consumers wanna buy.
Right.
So it's, it's a win for everybody as far as I can see.
Except for the ad agency, if they have to start inspecting hundreds of, like, I don't know what the number of farmers who will be processing more than 1,000 birds is, right? I mean, that's what I wanna talk to the agency about. Is
We
this
don't
gonna
know.
be too many places for them to visit without adding staff? And that's where the money that Carolyn mentioned
Didn't
comes in,
they-
right?
I thought they testified though that they'd added 2 more inspectors.
I don't know.
I would have to check this.
I thought that, over the, used to be like 5 or something, right? And I thought the lady that was here said that over the years they've added a couple more to handle everything, but we'll have them back. Yep. Anything else, Bill or Caroline?
I guess my sort of last thought, as as I'm thinking about sort of what Carolyn mentioned about funding and sort of to your point, Senator, about like, it's a win for the consumers. I do think that as Vermont farmers sort of have the ability to now sort of do broader chicken sales, be able to do these parts and meet demand in a different way. I think it's like, I don't know how to describe it other than it's kind of like an arms race sort of, where it's like if you're at the farmer's market and your neighbor is selling chicken parts, you sort of have to as well, because I think that's where the demand really is. So I think just putting it out there, I don't really have a recommendation on this, but I just think that we're going to see a lot of uptake as this law comes into play. And I just think, if we could think about ways to really support, I do a lot of grant writing, so I'm always thinking about, grant support, but just, ways to sort of support farmers to help scale, and to meet that demand. Because I do think there's a lot of unmet demand there. And I think we're going to see everybody sort of get into this pretty quickly is my take on it. So,
Well, given the current fiscal climate, I don't think we're gonna be successful with the bill if we add any sort of funding to it.
No.
So grants are one thing, that's great. Maybe somebody can write a grant but it's probably not gonna be coming out of the general fund.
Well, do you work through the farm viability program, writing grants?
I do. Yep.
And of course, we set that all up a few years back, we had Ted Brady in that worked for Senator Levy, I think, or one of the congressmen. And he said, on his way out, we were talking about getting federal money, and on his way out, he said, it's an awful thing. Vermont always leaves a lot of money on the table for various federal agencies on grants, and I don't know. I got to thinking about it, and next time the committee met, I said, well, why the heck don't we go grab some of that federal money? And so we chatted about it in committee and put a bill out and got done. The biggest fight was where it was going to be located, the program. And, over the years, of course, the Ag Committee set up, VHCB and had excellent, every year we get a report, of course, from VHCB and I don't know of ever once getting a bad report from them or from any of their people that they work with. And I said, well, it's kind of an ag agency wanted that viability program in the worst way. And we just kind of stuck by our guns and said, no, I think we got a home for it. If they'll take it, they'll do a good job. And I think yesterday we've spent about maybe $1 million, but it's taken in about $20 million. So for, a little investment, we've helped an awful lot of Vermont people get grants for good things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I don't know if they do any for chickens. We'll talk with Gus or their director in that program about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one maybe final question that we didn't cover to ask Bill earlier, and that was just, Bill, if you have an idea if there's how many other technical service providers there are in the state with similar expertise to like you have around hazard plans and stuff. Is that something where you like the go-to person for in the state, or is there many more people like you?
Yeah, so I guess within the viability program, there's one other advisor who I know has that sort of similar background, and actually she comes out of a pretty strong poultry background. She had a poultry processing operation up in Maine, so she's really a go-to for this sort of thing. And there was one or two folks at UVM, but I haven't honestly heard much out of that program in a while, so I'm wondering if maybe some folks moved on or something like that. So I'll say for myself at the moment, I'm not like exactly, I'm not, folks aren't beating down my door, so to speak, for HACCP and food safety stuff. It's a little bit more, things trickle in as they do. But yeah, I mean, I think anything we can do to build that capacity in state would be, pretty helpful. I think, a safe product is a more sellable product, and I think that consumer confidence piece is really critical. So.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Well, if you folks are all set, we'll keep working on this and hopefully, once the dust settles here on crossover and everything gets a little quieter, we'll kick the bill out and hopefully it'll become law.
Awesome. That's really good to hear. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your time and we really appreciate it. And, feel free to get hold of us anytime.
Well, thanks everybody. I appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, that was good.
I think we're gonna winner.
Yeah. No, and, once things do get a little quieter, we got that one pretty well ready to go. And, so, we have the mushroom.
At 10:45, do you want to take a break now?